No country has ever prospered that failed to put its own interests first. We will no longer surrender this country or its people to the false song of globalism.
New Right Network. Mobilizing, countering the left, energizing the right. New Right Network, home of the New Right movement.
Welcome to the weekly wrap-up where two guys sit around a camera trying to figure out what just happened. My name's Bob Dunlap.
And I'm Eric Matheny. And man, what a week. We're not going to have World War III, but Iran shot down a Ukrainian airline.
Oops, didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
So what happened is the night that Iran was shelling our base in Iraq, inadvertently, on purpose, who knows, but a Ukrainian commercial jetliner got in the way of the missile and 170 some odd people on board dead. And 62 of them or 63 of them are Canadian. And Justin Trudeau comes out and he gives what appears to be an apology for the Ukrainian aircraft getting in the way of the Iranian missiles. Could there be a weaker leader on the global stage than Justin Trudeau?
Yes, Nancy Pelosi.
Or Barack Obama.
Hey. I feel bad for the, I bet somebody was on that plane, though. Have you read any of those conspiracy theories?
Look, there's going to be conspiracy theories abound. You're going to have people saying, oh, there was no plane. It's a false this or that. No, I don't buy that for a second. There was a plane. It was on a path. It was a flight from Tehran to Kiev. And there were 63 Canadians on board, Iranians, all sorts of folks on board, women, children, absolutely tragic. Why in the world was the plane flying in a war zone? Why didn't the air traffic control ground all the flights?
That's a really good point. I love the fact that the left blames Trump. They can blame Trump for anything. No matter what he does, he's screwed.
You're absolutely right. The politicians, the left, they're all coming out saying if Trump would not have done what he did, if he didn't attack Soleimani, this never would have happened. Guys, Trump did not fire the missiles that took down this plane. It was first of all, Bob, we talked about it on the last show, Russian missiles, Russian missile defense system. It could have been up to 2 missiles took down this flight. It was a Russian missile defense system. Now, what could have happened, Iran is still denying that they did it. Of course, they're going to take it to the grave. We're going to have to get our investigators in there. We're going to pull the black box. We're going to get it. We're going to find out what happened. Now, whether anything comes of it, as tragic as it is, it's really, we don't have a vested interest. Canada really has a vested interest. 63 Canadians are dead at the hands of the Iranians, and Trudeau looks like he's ready to roll out the red carpet and apologize.
You notice that they couldn't hit one of our embassies or military bases, but they could hit a moving plane. Go figure on that one.
Well, what happened is they're saying that the missile defense system was set to an automatic setting where it basically detects any metal objects in the sky and will shoot it down. So it's like the equivalent of like butt dialing your ex-girlfriend. Like, oops, sorry, didn't mean to.
Or butt dialing your wife at the strip club.
Arguably worse. So Iran is a hot topic, and we are fortunate tonight to have on our show Callie from Callie Underground. She's great. She's been on the show before. She is from Iran. She's going to walk us through what is it like in that country, because if you remember, we talked about Michael Moore. He had put out some really questionable tweets. He put out one just the other day where he's saying he shows a picture of the Soleimani funeral, and there were something like 500,000 mourners there. And he's asking, hey, do we have any generals in the United States that we would show up 500,000 for? And lo and behold, we're saying, wait a minute, they didn't have a choice. And I think she's going to be able to get into what it's like to live in Iran.
Yeah, they didn't have a choice. They were even shooting people that didn't want to go to the funeral. So, yeah, I'd love to not live there. You know who should live there? Everyone that's bitching about us killing that guy. We should ship him out to Iran. You're
free to live there, but they have immigration laws over there. So without further ado, let's bring on Callie. We are here with Callie from Callie G Underground. She was a guest on our show several weeks ago, and we brought her back because she has firsthand knowledge of what it is like to live in Iran. So when you have these Hollywood virtue signalers like Michael Moore coming out and telling us what it's like, I think it's better to hear it from someone who has actually lived the regime and can give firsthand knowledge. Callie, welcome back to our show. How are you?
Hey, this is Callie. Thanks for having me on, Eric. I'm so happy to be on your show so I can talk a little bit about what happens in Iran and the truth. So thanks for having me on.
So tell us about yourself. So you were born in Iran.
Yeah, so just to give you guys a little bit of background of why I know what I'm talking about is I was born in Iran, and until I got my citizenship, I went back and forth. So I have Persian friends, um, and I speak Farsi. So I have a lot of knowledge as far as living there, dealing with that regime firsthand. So I can tell you, first of all, one of the things that the American people need to know is that Iran used to be an absolutely 100% free country. It was a prosperous country. It was, um, free in a sense of people had the right to freedom of speech. They can wear what they want. And so I want the American people to understand that. That all changed when the revolution happened, which was in 1979. And that's when this terrorist regime took over and just pretty much started, you know, the terrorism and the takeover of the Iranian people in Iran. So basically, they've been holding the Iranian people hostage, the mullahs or the ayatollahs or the regime itself. So I think Americans need to understand these are not good people. These are not nice people. They cut people's heads off. Um, you know, they don't accept, they kill gay people. They just recently killed 1,500 people, but out of that 1,500, 400 was women and 17 was teenagers. So I want people like Michael Moore and Rose McGowan to understand that when they defend these people, they're literally defending. And it's not a joke for a lot of Iranians. I know that women, even American Iranians right now, are afraid to speak out because the regime is ruthless. There's nothing good about it. The people of Iran did not support Soleimani. He was the one that killed the protesters. So no, they didn't come out and mourn him. That is the most absolute 100% lie that fake news media is telling everyone. And I don't appreciate that because the Iranian people would never come out and mourn Soleimani. That's ridiculous.
So, Callie, so in a country like Iran, when someone like Soleimani is killed and you have 500,000 mourners taking to the street, that is not organic. Is that the government saying, get out of your house and go march?
I think what you're asking me is about the march and the mourning of Soleimani. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So in regards to the mourning and what they were calling, they were saying all these people are out mourning for Soleimani. What happened is the government shut down all the businesses and all the schools, and basically by force told the people that they have to go out and mourn. So it wasn't like it was a choice and people were so excited to go out there. No. I've heard that some people got shot because they were caught actually being in their home and not mourning. So to be completely honest, the people are getting transportation, they're getting food, and they're getting driven to mourn. So it's just basically propaganda. And I do want to say one other thing is I want the American people to understand that one of the tactics the Iranian government uses is 100% propaganda. 100% propaganda. They make up stories. They make they coerce people to go and protest, and then they say, wow, look at all these people that loved Soleimani. No, Soleimani was not the Iranian people's general. They did not accept him as the general. He was the general of the terrorists that's been holding the Iranian people hostage for so long. So,
Kelly, my question, I talked about this with Bob the other day. Now, Soleimani is effectively like the vice president of Iran. He was the number 2 guy. Am I correct?
right. So Soleimani's job was basically the enforcer of the regime. So he started out with Syria when they came out and started protesting, and he killed Syrians. When the protesters just recently came out and protested against the regime, just recently, he again was responsible for enforcing, killing, and protecting the regime. Basically, he is the most powerful next to, Khamenei. So yes, extremely powerful. And what he was in charge of was to have militias all around the world. It wasn't just Iran. This guy was a terrorist all over the place. So you have to remember he killed Syrians, he killed Iranians, he killed Iraqis. His job was to go out there and just be the worst of the worst. And anytime the protesters would come out and start protesting, he was in charge of making sure he pushed back, and or killed the protesters. So
one thing I wondered about is, what does it say about the government when your number 2 is a military general? Like our government here, we have a civilian government. Mike Pence, our number 2, is a civilian. Why is there a military general so enmeshed in the government? Is that just how Iran strikes fear into the hearts of people?
that's correct. You have to remember that this is a dictatorship. This is like communist China. The Iranian people have no freedom. So they have completely destroyed the Persian culture that existed and created this very ultra extremist Islamic setup where you have, Islamic leaders and people like Soleimani who enforce for the regime, because that's all they do is kill people, so they create fear, so nobody speaks out. So the Iranian people are always scared to speak out, because every time they do, they basically get killed. It's that simple. And for somebody like Mike Moore, I mean, to send this guy a tweet saying, hey, are you joking? The guy is the number 1 terrorist, mass murderer, hangs people off of cranes, hates Americans, and you're going to send him a tweet? I mean, that's a joke. Or somebody like Rose McGowan saying, hey, I'm apologizing, sympathizing with a terrorist. Shame on any American, Democrat, I don't care if it's Republican, Hollywood, shame on any of you guys who back these terrorists over, the Iranian people that are screaming out and saying, hey, we're getting killed here. I mean, look at the Green Movement in 2009, right? Yeah. 2009, Obama had the opportunity to help the Iranian people back then. He decided to back the mullahs and say, hey, we're not gonna move forward. Shame on Obama for doing that. And on top of that, to make it worse, he basically dropped off all that cash. So Soleimani can just have all that money to create all those militias, all over the Middle East, and created just a huge mess, a huge terrorist group all over the Middle East.
So that money...
And that's why Donald Trump made the right choice by getting rid of Soleimani. And whoever goes against that is just absolutely insane. You can't back a terrorist.
I want to touch on the money because that's a big question that people have. So the money that we gave to Iran, the billion eight in cash, the 150 billion of assets we unfroze, did that money trickle down to the Iranian people and improve their lives, or that went right to the military?
Not a dime. Everything went into Soleimani and the extremist Islamist group, and it created militia after militia after militia across Syria and, Iraq, where they were just recently. I mean, they just attacked the embassy. Yes, Obama dropping off that $1.7 billion in cash in Swiss francs absolutely went to funding what you're seeing today. Because Soleimani and the needed money to fund all these proxy wars across the Middle East. So Soleimani was basically giving them arms and money to have presence in different countries. And he became extremely powerful across the Middle East, and not just as a general for Iran.
So let me ask you this. So now with Iraq, is it safe to say that Iran is effectively taking over Iraq?
Well, taking over, yeah, I think what they're trying to do in a sense is they're trying to not look scared. In my opinion, the Iranian government right now has a lot to deal with. They know that the Iranian people in truth are not happy. They just protested. They just lost Soleimani, so I think that makes them look bad. So the only thing that they're going to continue doing is trying to create all this chaos, and I think they're going to continue attacking here and there, but really it's all fluff. At the end of the day, I don't think that they're going to do anything major, because I think that they know that if they do, that Trump is going to definitely 100% go all the way. So I think that they're trying to save face right now because they had to do something to look like they're going to respond and do all this. But I don't think at the end of the day they're going to do anything except for these little wars, in Iraq or somewhere else. But I don't think it's going to be, they have the power to do anything substantial, basically.
So do you think they have enough sense not to push the issue anymore? I mean, we know they fired off these rockets the other night. They hit nothing. Unfortunately, there was a Ukrainian airliner that got in the way. That's an entirely separate issue that has to be addressed, I think, predominantly by Canada, because 63 Canadians were on board. Fortunately, no Americans, but unfortunately, a massive loss of life. Do you think, though, that show of force without any real retaliation against the United States, Iran kind of gets it and realizes that Trump is not Obama, and they're going to de-escalate?
Yeah, I think that they've realized that it's really in their best interest at this point, taking into consideration that Trump is not going to back down. I think he's been firm from the very beginning. So I think they are going to take a step back and try to save face. Now, whether the regime is going to change or whether they're going to continue this, my concern, Eric, with this regime in particular, is that if you don't stop this kind of, terrorist group, terrorist organization taking over the Middle East, that they're going to continuously be a problem. And I think that the Iranian government, not the Iranian people, but the Iranian government, if they do have, nuclear capabilities, they're a danger to the world. I think they're unpredictable. And so I think something needs to be done to where, this regime is not able to continue their growth of terrorism, just mass murdering and doing what they're doing to the people.
No, I agree 100%. They can never be permitted to have a nuclear weapon. I think that the only way you confront force is with force, giving them $1.8 billion in cash, They still chant death to America. We kill their number two. They still chant death to America. They don't like us. It's an ideological conflict. What I want to close on, my last question to you is, before 1979, was there that marriage of religion and government the way there is now? Was it more, I guess, to quote, American politics, the separation of church and state in Iran prior to 1979?
Prior to 1979, everything was completely 100% different, and there was a separation. It was a secular government, and people were free to have, I think there's a misconception with Iran that everyone in Iran is Muslim, and that's not true. There's a lot of Jews, there's a lot of Christians in Iran. So it was 100% different, and everybody was free to be who they want. And now the government basically is like ISIS, and they control the people of Iran. It's basically like if ISIS were to take over a country and become the government. That's what this regime is. So once they took over all freedoms, including freedom of religion. People can't, girls have to cover their hair at 6 or 7 years old. They have to wear the hijab. So there's absolutely zero freedom now. Prior to 1979, it was complete freedom. People drank, people danced. I mean, there's pictures of my mom in a bikini, right? In 1978. Now, everything is run by these terrorist Islamists, basically. So everything now has become Islam in that country.
What an oppressive way of life. Well, Callie, you are the people that Hollywood needs to speak to. Michael Moore needs to get his fat ass up and talk to people like you who have lived there, who have been there, who can speak firsthand. Callie, a great friend of the show. Thank you so much for having us on. Tell the people where they can find you in the world. Having a little delay there.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on to speak the truth. I do appreciate that, because I think that's really important. And anyone that wants to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me at Callie Deplorable on Twitter. And or you can reach me at calliedeplorable@protonmail.com.
Well, Callie, thank you. Great guest, great friend of the show, great follow on Twitter. Go check her out. Check out the Callie G Underground podcast, and thank you so much. So that was Callie G Underground. She's great. What a resource on Iran. And not being from there and having never been, I feel like I have a much better idea of what it's like to actually live there. And Bob, I think these are the folks we have to be listening to. We can't listen to people like Michael Moore and these Hollywood virtue signalers who have no idea what it's like to live there.
Right. I agree. It's ridiculous. But yeah, that was great having her on.
These people don't have a choice. You got 500,000 people out mourning for Soleimani, because if you don't, you're going to be shot. It's like in communist Cuba, and you go to a rally, everybody stands and applauds for Castro for an hour, 2 hours, and the first person to sit down, they get shot.
Not good. Not good.
Now that World War III is not going to happen, Democrat talking points have to shift back to impeachment. Nancy Pelosi says she's going to bring the articles over. Finally.
That's what she says. I think she's kind of crazy, but she's got Feinstein and some other major Democrats saying send them over. So she's getting pushed from some big people over in the Senate now.
Do you think the mentality over there is like, get it over with?
I think their mentality is they got screwed. They never should have impeached him. They knew they didn't have bipartisan votes. So, and I think the squad pushed him into it, and I think they're screwed. His numbers went up. His fundraising went up. I think she's pissed how the whole thing went down, and she's like, all right, you take it.
So why didn't she stand her ground? Because we've talked about this on the show before. I don't believe Nancy Pelosi wanted to impeach the president. I think she hates him. I think fundamentally she can't stand him, but she understands the political climate. You say what you will about her, she is politically savvy. Why give in to the squad? Are they that powerful?
Yeah, and the money behind them. I think that's the way Washington works. Is money. It's all about the money. So yeah, I think they are that powerful and the money people. Soros probably eyeball stack Soros. Yeah.
Do you think the squad is invincible? Do you think those 4 women are going to stay in their seats for the next 40 years?
I think it's great what they're doing because at least they say what the Democrats always were. Hated Jews, hate America. At least they say it out loud. Where Pelosi and Schumer's Jewish too, which I don't know. They all hid their agenda way better than the wacko left is hiding it. So I think it's great for America that these people are turning the Democrats far, far left, because maybe 5-10% of America feels the way they do. So they're going to get crushed.
Oh, I don't even think that number's that high. I think like we talked about it a couple shows ago when Julian Castro, when he dropped out, the first thing he did when he's on a Democratic debate stage, he speaks Spanish. He's talking about trans women of color. He's talking about tampons in men's rooms. And that's all well and good. But are these the points that you only get limited time on a debate stage? Are these the points you're trying to sell home to middle America? Why are they catering to woke Twitter? Are you trying to get 1,000 retweets, or are you trying to become president? Why this catering to the left? Where are the adults in the room? Why doesn't Nancy Pelosi say, I'm 80 years old. I've been doing this since before you guys were born. No, we're not going far left. We're going to, if you want to win, we're going to go Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio. We're going to speak to middle America and not demonize white people.
I think they forget about the popular vote doesn't win the presidential election. I think the founding fathers, that was such a great idea, because right now we'd be like California and New York. So thank God for the founding fathers' idea on that.
Well, you have to represent the interests of all the people, because, and especially the representative government that we have, is it's all based on population. And that's why we have a Senate. You have a House of Representatives based on population, which is why California, New York have all the representatives, and Montana, Wyoming have only a few. But every state, no matter how big, how small, gets 2 senators. That's how you balance things out. That's why you have a bicameral legislature, and that's why you have an electoral college, so people in Montana, West Virginia have an equal voice to those in New York and Los Angeles. And look, Democrats were all about the electoral college up until 2016, when they realized that Trump, look, this is chess, it's not checkers. Trump outplayed Hillary Clinton. He knew where to go and what to do. She didn't go to Wisconsin. She thought she had it in the bag. And they ignored people. They ignored these middle America people who felt like the world had gone on and left them behind. So I don't know why, in trying to regain the executive branch, why they're spending their time catering to the far left. And that's, I'm happy with it, because it's only going to mean victory. But just from an unbiased political standpoint, I can't see the logic in doing it.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And you touched on that middle America felt like America was leaving them behind. Well, it was. All the jobs were leaving. The politicians didn't care about them. And then Trump comes down that escalator and says what everybody was thinking, and he's the only one with the balls to say it. No one thought he was going to win. They all thought he was a joke. And look what he's done for middle America. Unemployment's at 3.5%. He's done exactly what he said he's going to do, which is another thing that politicians don't do. Anyways.
The Dow hit 29,000 for the first time.
401ks are going through the roof. I love it. Love it. And it just took some common sense policies. I mean, it's not like he's a genius on these policies. Lower taxes, reduce regulation, and let America go. So it's great. Love it.
I think aside from being competent and aside from being able to do the job and having that private sector background, I think the way he speaks, the way he communicates is so refreshing, because as long as I've been alive, politicians are stiff, they're uptight, they're scripted, they're fake. Donald Trump is every American at Thanksgiving dinner after 2 drinks. That's what he is. He says what everybody looks over their shoulders and then says. And it's so refreshing to see a politician say that. And that's why he's where he is. But back to our point on the squad. So you heard AOC, what she won't pay her Democratic National Committee dues?
Yeah, I had an epiphany today that I realized that she's not paying the dues. What she's doing with the money is she's actually hoarding all her money to hand it to politicians that are going to run against incumbent Democrats like she is. So the squad is running the Democratic Party now. That's why Nancy impeached Trump. Remember, 6 months prior, she said she won't do it unless bipartisan. She wouldn't have impeached him if it wasn't for the squad. The squad is running the Democratic Party.
Well, remember that the squad is not organic, that these people were handpicked, and there's an organization. We take AOC, everybody knows about the Justice Democrats. It's an organization backed by George Soros money that handpicked her to run for this office. And everything she says, everything she does is spoon-fed to her. Now, I've said this before, and I think it's coming to fruition. You're going to see 200 AOCs running in 2020. Go on social media, go out in the world. You see these random people like city employee, bartender, bus driver running for Congress in this district. And, they have their gender pronouns on their Twitter profile. And, and there's one guy in Texas who has the Antifa flag on his Twitter bio. I mean, you're getting some, fringe level socialist communists that are I don't know if they're going to win, but the fact is that you have a contingent in this country. You have a large number of people, large enough to be alarming, that have a socialist / communist presence in government. And, that's not going to go over well with middle America. So I don't think that there are any threats to Trump, but equally as important as regaining the White House, we need to take back the House, because we've watched it for the last almost 2 years now. We really screwed up when we had both houses. Paul Ryan, screw you. Really, we had the wrong guy. And let's talk about Matt Gaetz. What the hell? He voted for the resolution to limit Trump's War Powers Act. 8 Democrats voted against it, and then 4 Republicans? How many Republicans voted in favor of it? 3 or something? I think 3.
Yeah, something like that. I didn't really do the research on Matt Gaetz. I was too disgusted when I saw that. But going back to the AOC, I'd rather have an AOC run than like Omar. She's nuts.
Yeah, and the other day, Omar was giving a press conference, and she was front and center because they're talking about Iran and war, and she grew up in war-torn Somalia, so now she gets the stage, and there's AOCs behind her, and there's this one shot where Omar kind of moves to the side, and you could see AOC's face, and it's like, that bitch. Got a bigger piece of cake to me. It's like my sister and her middle school friends, fighting over boys. They it never changes. You can't have 4 queen bees. I've been saying it for a year. The squad's going to turn on each other. Watch. You can't do it. You can't have 4 women in a group all on a pedestal, because we know how women are when they get into groups and someone's getting more attention than the other. Come on, ladies, come on. We're speaking truth here. Claws are coming out.
Who's going to come out on top is the one with the most money, and the one that the TV likes the most. So it's all about the money, man. They sold their soul to get to DC. It's disgusting.
Ayanna Pressley is the quiet one. I mean, she said some pretty inflammatory things, but she doesn't get the credit that Tlaib, Omar, and AOC get. She's kind of the forgotten one. She's like the George Harrison of the squad.
Or like the Rat Pack. There's one in the Rat Pack that you never can remember his name.
Peter Lawford.
Nice.
Yeah, no one talks about him. You talk about Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra. Who's that other guy? It's Peter Lawford.
Exactly. She's the Peter Lawford.
She is, man. But with that being said, I mean, we have to see how things go and what happens from here. Impeachment's going to be back on the front burner now that World War III is not happening. I think that Nancy made that decision now because the Dems had gone all in on, oh my God, World War III, and we put that to rest in a day. And now they got to pivot back to something, so might as well go to impeachment. They'll get it, 2-3 weeks out of it. We'll be talking about it. It'll be an acquittal. I think everybody knows where it's going to go right now, so it's not like it's going to come as a shock. And I think they could say, hey, we tried this. The Senate Republicans are corrupt, and they tried to impede the process, and they'll move on to something else. They'll go back to racism or recession or something.
They're trying. They can't get them, though. The economy's too strong.
It is too strong. It's only looking to get stronger from there. So with that being said, you got anything else?
No, I'm good. It was a fun week. Fun week. I love that the whole Iran thing was over in a day, and Iran was like, okay, we're all done. That's all we're going to do. Thank you.
No, but I'll tell you, there's got to be some repercussions for shooting down that Ukrainian jet, and I hope to God, I don't think he is. But Canada, man, 63 Canadians were killed. You've got to do something. You've got to do something.
What Obama would do would send him up 1.5 billion in cash.
You'd send them cash, but we are imposing sanctions again, crippling sanctions. Hopefully, it brings them back to the negotiating table, and we can get a good deal out of them, not like the nuclear deal we had with them in 2015.
I would check for suicide bombs if I was coming to the table with any of those Iranians, personally.
Speaking of Iranians, one more thing I wanted to talk about. So the other day, Omar puts out a tweet saying, if the Iranians strike Trump hotels or Trump properties worldwide, then Donald Trump can claim financial loss and he can, justify war on those grounds. Now, nobody that I know, at least not me, and I don't think you, even thought about Trump properties being a target. And just tonight, we're recording Friday night, an Iranian national was found just right by Mar-a-Lago with weapons. Do you think Ilhan Omar, you want to talk about dog whistles, said hey guys, if you want to hit somebody, Trump properties worldwide?
Yes, and I think Maxine Waters did the same thing with why there's violence against Republicans. Yes, I think it was
go confront them at restaurants and gas stations. Yeah, that's what they want to happen. It's terrible. I mean, look, we talked about it on the last show. We got real fervent anti-Americans in government, and we're fighting a war on two fronts. We're fighting terrorism, and we're fighting the war here at home.
That's me getting stabbed in the back.
That's you getting stabbed in the back. Well, we all are by the Democrats. So with that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in. We'll be back Wednesday, 9:30 p.m. next Saturday. Got some good guests lined up in the weeks to come. Thank you, as always, for tuning in.
God bless you, Trump 2020.
You've been listening to New Right Network, mobilizing, countering, energizing. Online at newrightnetwork.com.